All right, hi everyone. Welcome to this month's Apex Benefits monthly webinar. This month, we are talking about the evolution of supplemental insurance with a little help from our friends over at Guardian. Before we do that, though, I do want to go through some housekeeping items. So all attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of the presentation. And so if you have any questions or comments, use the chat box located in the right-hand side of your webinar screen. For audio access, attendees can use computer audio or call in using phone option. And the presentation slides and resources can be downloaded by clicking icon on the right-hand side of your webinar screen. So I'm very happy to introduce our guest, Keita Marville. He is the Regional Practice Leader Worksite at Guardian Life Insurance Company. As a Regional Worksite Practice Leader, Keita drives revenue growth through worksite sales by partnering with the local Guardian sales rep and with regional and national brokerage firms. Prior to joining Guardian in 2021, Keita spent 12 years at Aflac, holding multiple roles in the areas of district coordinator, regional broker coordinator, and broker sales rep for the Northeast Ohio market. Keita served as past president of National African American Insurance Association for 4 years and was lead ambassador for the American Lung Association Columbus chapter. Keita received his Bachelor's of Arts degree from The Ohio State University. I went to Purdue, so I won't hold that against you. And Keita was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, is married to Stephanie Marville with two beautiful children, Ezra and Alani Marville. Thanks so much for joining us, and I will hand it over to Keita.
All right, let's test this out here. Thank you for the intro. I appreciate that. It just in light of I can't believe we're at T minus 45 days so the season starts. It's kind of crazy to think that we're already at that point already. But for another conversation, thank you for allowing me to join. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all, and for the walkthrough there on my bio. The reality is, I hope that my experience will bring some credence to today's conversation. It's been a long time I've been on the supplemental health side of things and insurance, and so yes, at this point, I guess I would consider myself to be an expert in this space. So I anticipate that as we go through today, covering the topics here, that there'll be some time left over. I do want to leave time for that. So as they kind of covered there for the housekeeping, put any questions in the group chat, and at the end we can have a little Q&A. If there are questions, hopefully I can answer that. And of course, if for some reason those questions don't get answered, the Apex team told me that they would send that to me and I can get those answered and sent over to you. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So with my experience here at Guardian at Aflac, I can tell you I've been on every side of the coin when it comes to sub health. So I've been the one that's taken the application, the computer sitting with the employees. I've been the one that is annoyingly probably knocked on your door at some point, meaning I've been in market and I walked into that walked into that company and tried to talk to them about why sub health makes sense. And now being on this side where I work with brokers and agencies strategizing around where supplemental health or voluntary benefits may be a good fit. So today I want to approach it from two perspectives. One from the employee's perspective, what we're seeing today, and then from the employer's perspective. So when we look at today's topics, we'll talk about market trends, look at it from number 2 and 3 from both perspectives, and then we'll get into lines of coverage, what's available in the market, and then again we'll open with Q&A. So before we get started, I think I'd like to take you to a place and paint a picture for you that hopefully as we go through today's presentation, you'll be able to just keep this image in your mind, right? So yes, if you've lived long enough, if you've got kids, family members, at some point, we're probably going to see the hospital or doctor at some point, right? Whether you're hurt or sick, you are going to seek treatment somewhere, right? You go seek treatment, you show up at the urgent care doctor or hospital, and what are they going to ask you? Do you have insurance? And if you do have your card on you, please present it, i.e., let's make sure you can pay for today. But you present your card, You go get your treatment done, you get your service, you get yourself looked at, you get healed, you're in there for a couple of days, whatever it is. And then typically 10 to 15 days later after you leave your discharge, you're probably going to get an envelope in the mail. And when you open that envelope, it's going to tell you exactly what happened to you, what services were rendered, what they cost, and in that bottom right corner, in that little red box, is probably going to be a total that does not show zero, right? So the question becomes, well, what do you have in place that can help offset the cost in that red box? And for you as an employee, if you're an employee, sometimes that number could freak you out, right? Like, where does the money come from for that? Savings, debit, checking, savings card, credit card. Sometimes if it's big enough, you got to pull from an investment. We've got to find the means for that. And then from the employer's perspective, it can be, well, what can I give my employees? What can I provide them or present to them that they can take advantage of that can help offset that cost? So keep that picture in mind as we go through it. But let's look at this right now from a current state of things from employees. It's no surprise, folks. I mean, some of this may be just common knowledge, but the reality is, especially today's day and age, folks are concerned about financial wellness. Looking at this as a graph here, you can see even from last year to this year, there's been a significant dip and the comfortability of folks saying, hey, I feel secure. I feel like my financial stability or wellness is either excellent or good. There's been a significant dip. We know rent, cost of things is going up. I mean, with two kids, 7.5 and 5.5, I mean, I can't leave the grocery store without $200. I can't leave Target without $150. There's always something. So we know costs are going up. It's becoming ever more expensive to have things. And so there's this discomfort that I'm financially settled or that I'm prepared for an unfortunate sickness or injury. When you think about that bleeding into everything else, the question becomes, what can you take advantage of? All right. So, rising medical costs. Rising medical costs. I forget the slide there. I can cover that with you. The rising medical costs going up. 2/3 of bankruptcies today are caused by an unexpected medical expense. Scary statistic, of those 2/3, 78% of those folks had health insurance. So what's that mean? It basically means that health insurance, albeit good, albeit a necessity, is not covering everything. So there means, okay, where do I get the money to offset that cost? Thinking about high deductible plans. The days of $500 deductibles are long gone, right? So when you think about both perspectives, in fairness to you as an employer, you're trying to figure out ways to reduce costs because it's astronomically expensive to provide benefits to your employees. So one of the ways to reduce that cost is to put more of the burden on them to come up with the money to do that. But that's a burden that gets past the employee. So then it's the question of, well, then what can I give my employees so they don't freak out and can offset those costs? Because the reality is deductibles are going up, out-of-pocket expenses are going up. And so you want to provide some things, some benefits they can take advantage of to offset that. And looking at this slide, I can tell you as recently as just a month ago. So my son was home. He has severe asthma and allergies. He was breaking out a little bit, very nasally, giving him breathing treatment. The breathing treatments were not working. And so the wife and I are getting concerned. This is like around dinner time. He's complaining about stomach pain, and we kind of figured, okay, well, let's test it out. Let's ask him if he wants a treat, see if he goes for that. Usually if he says he wants a treat, it means it's probably not that bad. Some of the folks on this call have probably experienced that. But it continued in through the night. We gave him breathing treatments throughout the night. And then around 3 o'clock, he woke up, came down the hallway and said, Dad, my stomach is severe pain. He's cramping. So I'm laying with him for the next hour. He's tossing, turning, tossing, turning. So between the asthma that we can't seem to get under control, the rash he had, and the stomach pain, my wife's a nurse, and I'm like, honey, like stomach pains, abdominal pain is not something we want to muck around with. By this point, it's around 6 o'clock. So here's my choice. The urgent care does not open till 8. This is not an emergency, but he needs to be looked at. It's like, do I let my child muscle through the next 2 hours, or do I eat it and go to the ER? No, it's not an ER. It's not an emergency by category, but yeah, I'm thinking about the unnecessary ER bill that I'm going to have. That is the reality of how we can operate now. Do I want the cost? Does it make sense? Do I've got to do that? So that my point to that is, in highlighting this slide, is that today's day and age, we are sitting here thinking about, does it make sense to go? Is it altering our behavior because we're thinking about the sheer cost? Do we skip doctor's visits? Are we worried about the blood test and what's going to reveal? Because if it reveals something, then it means I got to go back in the hospital, which means it's another hospital visit. And then what if I've got to go to another specialty facility? And that facility is out of network. Am I going to have to eat the cost? There's so many things that go into that it's changing our behavior. So that's really the landscape and the reality of what we're seeing here as it pertains to our behaviors, knowing that we're experiencing more out-of-pocket costs. So from an employer's perspective, a lot of employers are saying, okay, what can I do to help my employees out with what they're experiencing? The good news is since ACA healthcare reform rolled out in 2009, there's been a massive adoption of these supplemental health policies coming into the market to provide an a la carte menu of benefits to pick and choose from, right? With financial wellness and well-being, employers are looking for ways to provide that. So the reality is, with the menu of plans, accident, critical illness, which includes cancer and hospital, we've seen a massive adoption of that. Looking at the stats here since 2014, an uptick from 36% to 52 on critical illness, the bigger ticket items, which was kind of like a, hey, major medical covers most of it back in the day, so we don't have to worry about the leftover out-of-pocket expense. It's not the case anymore. So a huge increase from 25 to 43% of employers that are providing that. And then hospital indemnity plan, I would say that statistic is probably a little bit short. Going to 24, I would suspect that's closer to 40%, up from 22. Simply because of high deductible health plans, folks are looking for ways to really offset that deductible and provide their employees an infusion of cash that, should they be hospitalized, it can help offset the hospital stay. Even more so, what brokers are doing with their clients is saying, hey, if we increase the deductible this year, let's bridge it with a hospital indemnity plan and kind of bridge that first day expense. So it's a strategy play. Let's increase that, reduce your expenditure as an employer, and let's put a hospital indemnity plan that's voluntary to offset the gap. That's been a nice strategy play to really help with the out-of-pocket for the employees. But an employer's view right now, and I thought this slide was really good to show you all for the folks on the call, is looking at size segment. What we're first looking at on the left-hand side is the top 5 reasons that employee or outcomes that employers are seeing from the introduction of the employee benefit. So improve well-being for the employees, improve employee retention and recruitment. A lot of times employers are offering these policies because they just don't want their employee going next door for better benefits or a richer benefits package. So a lot of employers are looking to add Sup Health as a way to beef up their benefits package, round it out, and retain employees, knowing that employees are more willing to go next door. Improved education, understanding of benefits. Another call Apex might host, which would be a great call, is around, okay, if we offer plans like this, how in the world do we educate our employees? Because the reality is, the thought of insurance policies paying you cash when you're hurt or sick, it's a little bit of a foreign concept. And so folks are trying to figure out, how in the world does that work? Give me a live example. How does that fit in with my package? So it's important that we educate the employees, and then increase participation and improved out-of-pocket medical expenses and protection. So just some overall weighted statistics here, just in terms of the reasons why employers are offering it. The biggest one we're seeing there is just its overall well-being. An employee feels more secure when they know that their employer is providing plans that can help with out-of-pocket expenses and round out their benefits. It's simply a play there on the overall well-being. Okay, so and looking at the plans that are available, how can Sup Health help the individual employees? Let's take a quick look and snapshot at each of the 3 plans, and then we'll round out with some Q&A, since we'll probably have some time for that. As I mentioned, the core ones in this space are your accident plans, your everyday knick-knack accidents, breaks, pulls, tears, fractures, so on and so forth. Critical illness for the bigger ticket items, which includes cancer. Yes, you'll see some standalone cancer plans in the market, but what you're seeing more of a trend is that, why not just put all the big ticket items under one? The standalone cancer plan was kind of an older strategy. That doesn't mean it's not available, but it's more so, can you blend that in to the critical illness plan and make it just kind of a one bundled plan? And then hospital indemnity. So looking at the accident plan, this is going to be for your everyday knick-knack accidents. If you've got kids, breaks, pulls, tears, anything you can think of there, this is going to be what you would put in place to help offset an accident. I know it sounds crazy and it sounds weird, but yes, on an accident plan, every insurance carrier has already priced out what your body parts are worth. So we already know that your dislocated hip is going to be 5,000, your dislocated or fractured shoulder is going to be 2,500, and those numbers, don't hold me to that. They may vary based on the plan design that your broker has put in place for you, but the point is, we've already predetermined what every one of those body parts are. So the way those plans work is, you go to the doctor and hospital, little Johnny broke his leg at football, you show up at the urgent care, you have the x-ray, If you have a CAT scan or CT scan, make sure the head is okay. They put a cast on, you get an air boot. They see the whatever type of fracture that it is. You may be there for a day or two, whatever is happening, and your accident plan is going to reimburse you for every one of those items and pay you a lump sum check to offset your costs. So the need for the accident insurance as well, if you've got kids, unless you plan on living in a bubble, the likelihood of you having an accident is pretty high. Just yesterday in the cul-de-sac playing with the kids, my daughter Lonnie, they're playing capture the flag. She's running and she kind of cut hard on the gravel, slipped and banged up and scraped up her knee. Thankfully, she braced her wrist with her arm. Her wrist was just hurting, but no break or no fracture, just kind of put some ice on it. But it can happen at any time. I've been doing this since 2009. I've seen the most ridiculous accidents, so you just never know. It can happen. But the point is, when you look at the average cost of what it means to be in an emergency room for an accident visit, an accident plan can certainly help offset the costs. So there's value in that. There's flexibility in design, so you can work with your broker partner to figure out what's the right price point, how rich do we want to make sure that our employees are getting reimbursed, and there's wellness benefits on those plans. So we'll reimburse you for getting the actual wellness checks done to keep yourself well. Okay, so kind of give me an example really quick. An accident plan, looking at this example here, Jane tore her knee. Major medical covers most of the out-of-pocket costs. She doesn't have most of the cost, but she's left with some. Doesn't have any accident insurance, and so she utilizes her savings to pay off the remaining balance. Again, keeping that same picture I painted for you earlier of that envelope showing up and it shows you still owe $784.62 to your local hospital. Well, could an accident plan helped? Yes. For the $2,000, it might have paid you for the fractured or for the accident, for the torn knee cartilage. These are great benefits that can offset that. So on the right-hand side, what you're seeing is same example. She utilized the major medical. It covers most, but she's still left without a pocket. They reimburse her for, as you can see there, for the injury, the MRI, the knee brace, the follow-up doctor's visits, maybe some rehab if that's in there as well. And yes, if there's more money that's left over from what she owes a doctor and hospital, you can use that for whatever you want. When my wife and I had our second baby and our hospital plan kicked in, which we'll get into next, once we covered the 800 and some change that we owed university hospitals here in Cleveland, the remaining part of that money was utilized for Target because we needed diapers, and that's exactly what we used it for. So it is entirely up to you what you do with it. But the idea is that accident plan can kick in. Now, I get the question all the time. All this sounds great, but how much do these plans cost? Yes, it can vary. But the idea is when I myself in my role day to day is sitting with your broker partner, figuring out and strategizing based on your demographic, your group, what's the hourly wage. The reality is we try to keep the monthly cost of that accident plan close to what an hourly wage is for that employee. And more often than not, it's much less. So for example, if you're paying your employees $22 an hour, it wouldn't be uncommon to see that plan run 14 bucks or 12 bucks a month for the plan. So the question becomes, does it make sense to put a $12 or $13 plan in place, which is one hourly wage for the month, to help offset the cost? I think the answer is yes. And so that's where it comes into play of shifting the plans around, plan designs to make sure it marries up with the budgets and the average income for your employees. Next plan is a hospital plan. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're hospitalized, which now includes sickness or injury, and you're hospitalized 24 hours or more. So in essence, getting into the fine legal jargon, are you at this point admitted? So it's not sitting in the ER for 22 hours. It's, am I admitted where there's a room and board charge? We know that's when the money meter starts to tick. How long are you going to be in there? And a hospital plan is going to pay you for first day of admission, and if ICU is included in that as well, and then a daily amount for how many days you're in there. Depending on whether you want to keep the plan HSA compatible or not, there's some additional benefits we can add in there, physician's visits, doctor follow-ups, some things in there. But I don't see that as often. Again, if you're especially trying to make sure it's HSA compliant, it sticks strictly to just the admission and the daily amount. But you are seeing some hospital plans on the market start to vary from that a little bit, but works similar to the accident plan. Once you're hospitalized, it's going to start to pay you money. So going through an example here, Ellie became ill, was admitted to the hospital. Major medical covers most, but leaves her with some out of pocket. She doesn't have the hospital indemnity plan and utilizes her savings to pay off the remaining bill. Same example, this individual, Kevin, he would have been there for 2 days and would have got a lump sum benefit. So the benefit, let's say, was $1,000 hospital plan that was rolled out at your company. You would have got the $1,000, and then maybe it was $200 a day for the next 2 days. You would have got a check for $1,400. So that's how it would have paid you to offset maybe some of the deductible or what's left over. And while they say he uses it for video games, obviously you can use it for whatever you'd like to offset the cost. The idea being they marry up together. Kind of getting the last one, then we'll close up, is looking at critical illness. So these are the bigger ticket items. And I can share with you stories. I've been doing this as long as I have. It is one of the most important to have in your portfolio, critical illness that pays a lump sum for the major ticket items. I remember, I'll always remember this one, but this was back in my Aflac days when this is when I was going door to door, working with the employer, trying to offer the supplemental health plans. This woman, this gal in HR, she was like, Keita, you've been trying to talk to me for over a year and get this offered in here. And like, I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if my employees are going to want to buy it. I said, look, the worst thing we can do is at least present it to the employees and let them make an educated decision on whether they think this makes sense for them. If you'll allow me, next employee meeting, I'll bring some donuts. We'll just talk about how the Aflac plans work, how they pay cash when you're hurt or sick. I'll present the cost for the plans, and if they do want to enroll, would you be willing to deduct from their paycheck and resubmit those premiums that you collected to Aflac? She said yes. Almost every one of the employees of that tool manufacturing plant purchased it, and she even took the cancer and critical illness plan herself. Fast forward 2 years after that, I remember walking in to make sure during their open enrollment period that everything's going fine. Do we have any new hires? And she told me, she said, Keita, I was diagnosed with cancer 6 months prior to me coming in. And she said, I just want to tell you thank you. Had you not come in that day 2 years ago, I would not have had this massive lump sum that you guys paid me. That has given me peace of mind that I don't have to worry about the mortgage for the next 8 to 12 months that I'm going to have treatments. I'll have to be missing time from work. Peace of mind of what you gave me. So you never know. But the plans, again, the point I'm trying to reiterate is that these plans can help and pay cash for whatever it is that you need to use it for. So critical illness plan, including cancer, for the big ticket items like strokes, heart attacks, bypass surgery, cardiac arrest, the bigger ticket things. And these are typically lump sum plans that you can choose from. So a large infusion of cash to help offset that cost. So as I close, I want to give you kind of a live example of what we see. This would have been an individual who elected a $10,000 lump sum plan for critical illness. And this is just looking at some average costs here of what they experienced at the hospital or doctor for their treatment. Chest x-rays come at about $360, an echodiagram, $2,000, MRI, $1,450, ER visits, bypass surgery costing $30,000. Of course, there's a large chunk of this that's getting covered by major medical, but the point is, we know that the bill is not going to show zero. There's going to be some out-of-pocket that he or she would have to cover, and that $10,000 can be used for any of that. In the example I gave you, that gal used that for 8 to 12 months of paying mortgage payments so that she knew that she was taken care of. You use it for whatever you want. Greg's total payout here in that example would have been $10,000. So as I close, when you think about the menu of plans and the benefits and the need's already there. Employees need a way to offset the out-of-pocket expense that's going to be burdened on them, especially nowadays when employers are trying to find ways to reduce the sheer cost of providing benefits. And there's ways to do that. The a la carte menu improves the well-being. They can choose what plans make sense for them and their families. If it's an older individual, they're not so concerned about accidents anymore, get the critical illness plan. But offering these on a voluntary basis really helps to round out the benefits and provide some financial security during that time. So I'll close there. Thank you, folks. I hope that helped you understand kind of the need and where Sup Health is fitting in today's marketplace and today's benefits. I don't know if there's any questions out there to the Apex team. I'm not sure if you're seeing any. If there aren't any, of course, for the folks on the call, submit those questions, turn them into your producer, your sales folks, your account exec, your Apex family, and get those to me, and I can address them if there's more questions in depth about how to plan.
Looks like we have one question, Keita.
You do? Wonderful. Okay, fire away.
Yep. And let me pull that up real quick. For critical illness, do they take into consideration pre-existing conditions or no questions asked type of thing?
Yeah, great question. So that really comes down to how you want to structure the plan. If your choice is to waive pre-existing conditions, of course, there's a little rate load for that on the back end for every carrier. So if you want to include pre-ex, of course, or include pre-existing conditions, that would be the cost would be less, not drastically less, but it would be less. And if you want to remove that provision, meaning I had a heart attack 4 months ago and coming up for August 1, can I elect this plan? If you want that answer to be yes, we'll remove that provision. The price would go up a little bit on the plans, but the answer is that's a choice between you and your broker partner to decide. Do we want to waive pre-ex? On the hospital indemnity plan, do we want to waive maternity? Meaning if you're currently pregnant and you take this plan August 1 and baby comes August 21st, we can remove the provision so that we can pay that initial hospital lump sum on the 21st. So those are things we can decide on, but there is a flexibility to do that. Great question.
It looks to
And
be
sorry, I'll elaborate a little further on that.
Okay.
If the pre-existing condition clause is we're not going to remove it, we're keeping that in there. Typically what we do is we look back 3 months or 6 months, depending on what the provision is or the plan design. We'll look back 6 months in your history to see if anything in the last 6 months, have you been diagnosed for anything? Are you receiving treatment for anything? If the answer for that is yes, you can still enroll in the plan, but we're going to remove the coverage of that plan. It's going to knock you out from having anything heart attack related for the next 12 months. So it doesn't stop you from having the plan, but it will allow you to still elect it. But that individual item, if it was a yes for that stroke or a yes for that heart attack, we're going to omit the lump sum being paid for that particular event for the next 12 months. Doesn't mean the plan's unusable. It just means for that type of stroke or heart attack, we can't cover that. Hope that makes sense. Great question.
All right. I don't see anything else in the queue, so I think we're good to go.
Good. Okay. Thank you to the Apex team. Thank you so much for letting me do this today. I hope it was helpful to you and your clients. I'll look forward to any feedback, any additional questions. But I truly appreciate you guys allowing me to have the time today to go over that with you. Much appreciated.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you.